And welcome to the Dean Report Live, also known as the Dean Obeidallah Show. Look who's here. You know him, you love him. It's Glenn Kirschner, who a former 30-year prosecutor, widely popular YouTube show, Justice Matters with Glenn Kirschner. There's 1.1 million followers there. Of course, very popular on Substack as well. He's with us here today to break down some of the legal issues of the day. Glenn, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, great to be with you, Dean. I just wish we had legal issues to talk about. It's been kind of slow, right?
Oh my God, it never ends. Glenn, when's it going to get easier? We all need a break. Everybody, Trump's aging us. Look at me, I'm 22. Look what he's done to me. It's killing me. I'm not kidding. So, look, it's a harsh time, but there's certain things I want to get your reaction, because I talked to Frank Figliuzzi right before this. Frank was more of the police officer, law enforcement, FBI guy. You're the prosecutor, so it's like Law and Order come to life here. The Jeffrey Epstein files. Donald Trump, and I just want to remind people, A.G. Bondi was on Fox News in March, said thousands, that's the word she used, thousands of documents, truckload of documents. In February, that's when she said, the client list is on my desk. She may have been the file, but she said there's a file was there. But she literally said there are thousands of documents. They're going to release them. She's all about transparency. She slammed Biden. He hid everything. We're about transparency. That's what she said in that March interview. In the DOJ memo on Monday, it begins with transparency. And how many documents of the thousands did they release in the spirit of transparency? Zero. Zero from the Jeffrey Epstein files of thousands of pages. What is your take on this, Glenn?
My take is Pam Bondi will protect Donald Trump at all costs. And it's not like these folks at the Department of Justice, air quotes around leadership, the leadership at the Department of Justice cares at all what people think, that they care about the lies, the contradictions, the hypocrisy, oh, it's on my desk, I'm going to get to it. Oh, it never existed. And she tried to explain that away. Well, I wasn't talking specifically about a list of names. Well, I'll bet there were a lot of names in those thousands of pages of documents. That's kind of the way investigations work. I know because I was involved for decades investigating crime. Yes, Frank was the FBI agent doing the investigation, but the federal prosecutors investigate in tandem, particularly in the grand jury. And you know what we do when we compile documents? Typically, we identify people who might have been involved in committing crimes or might be witnesses to crimes. So listen, I don't credit anything that comes out of Pam Bondi's mouth. The only thing that she contributes to any conversation is carbon dioxide at this point.
Very well put. And by the way, Frank Figliuzzi was in the Miami office as an FBI agent, and he was there when some of the investigation was going on. With Donald Trump, it's not like I expect the file to say Donald Trump was procured children to have sex with. I don't think that's in it. But I have no doubt if it's a detailed investigation into Jeffrey Epstein, Donald Trump's name has to be there. They were friends, undisputed, for 2 decades. Into 2005, when the investigation began in 2004. And Donald Trump in 2002, and I want to read a quote for you, Glenn, and everyone else. He said, this was 2002 interview in New York Magazine about Jeffrey Epstein. I've known him for 15 years. Terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. And then he adds, it's even said he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. Donald Trump likes women who are 19 and 18, right? When he's saying on the younger side, he is saying he knows that there are teenagers and children involved. Not saying he committed a crime, but I'm saying he knew exactly what's going on. And I wonder the breaking point must have been the investigation that went public in 2005. But do you think it's fair that Trump's name would be in there? They hung out so much at Mar-a-Lago at other events?
Well, based on that quote you just read, it sounds like Donald Trump is relating things, specifically the very last clause about the girls being on the younger side. That sounds like something based on firsthand knowledge and experience, and which makes sense if he was palling around with Jeffrey Epstein for years or perhaps decades. But I think the most important data point that I have seen in recent weeks is when Elon Musk posted that Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. If that were untrue, it would probably be defamatory, and I would expect that Donald Trump would have filed a defamation suit. I haven't seen one unless I've missed the reporting.
And Donald Trump loves to sue people, as we know, CBS, NBC, you name it. And one other thing, Glenn, and again, as a former prosecutor, I have to get your reaction. In 2019, when Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide, or at least allegedly committed suicide, Donald Trump said he hated the guy, and he said, I was never on his plane. That's what he said point blank. We learned from the Giselle and Maxwell federal prosecution in 2021 that he was in the log 7 times, that he was on the Lolita Express, and that one of the pilots testified under oath for the prosecutors, the federal prosecutors, that Donald Trump was on the plane. What does that say to you?
It says to me that Donald Trump may have a lot to lose if any of the file becomes public knowledge. And that's why, look, Pam Bondi is going to do everything she can to protect Donald Trump. She's supporting him, Dean, in all of his lawless and unconstitutional executive orders. So here's the perfect juxtaposition, and it exposes who Pam Bondi is. In the first Trump administration, within the first day or two of him being sworn in, he signed into law that hateful, unconstitutional Muslim ban. Unconstitutional is just not my opinion. That's what the court ruled. And when he asked his acting Attorney General, Sally Yates, to support it, go into court and fight for my Muslim ban, she said, no, I'm the Attorney General. It's unconstitutional. I'm not going to do it. Of course, she was fired. Pam Bondi is sending DOJ lawyers into court every day on what I would call, figuratively speaking, suicide missions, because they're going in there, they're arguing that the unconstitutional is constitutional. Now, we know why. They want to bubble it up to the Supreme Court and get the Supreme Court to ignore the Constitution. But these lawyers, I mean, the most recent one, I forget the woman's name. Apologies to this particular third-rate DOJ lawyer. She's been with DOJ since like May of this year, and she's in there arguing the Abrego Garcia case. And she's like 3 years out of a clerkship or some such nonsense. This is insanity. The DOJ is imploding, at least the leadership and the people that they're bringing on board to go into court on these suicide missions. It's all imploding. And I mourn what's going on at my beloved professional home for 24 years, the Department of Justice. And there are still tens of thousands of good people there trying to do the work of the American people. But Pam Bondi and Emil Bove and Todd Blanche and company, they don't give a rat's ass for the rule of law. All they care about is currying favor with their orange deity, Donald Trump. And they're going to continue to do that until it comes home to roost. And I've been saying all along, Dean, this is not sustainable. What Donald Trump and his executive branch flunkies are doing is not sustainable. And I think with every lawless act, with every unconstitutional executive order, with every lie they tell to federal court judges, with every hospital closure, with every Medicaid cut, with every abuse of the due process rights of our fellow human beings, Trump gets weaker and we get stronger. I believe that to my core. We have a hell of a challenge on our hands, but we are up for the challenge.
Oh, we're up for the challenge. This is what we live for. Folks, we're fighters. It's in our DNA as Americans to rebel against the king. I talked about this on my show in a Substack article for 4th of July, that what Donald Trump doesn't get about being an American is that we're not going to roll over when someone wants to be a king. We were taught from kindergarten how the brave colonists stood up against the most powerful military in the world at the time, Great Britain and King George III. And that's who we are as Americans. So I have no doubt whatsoever, it's in our DNA to stand up to a king. Trump doesn't get that. He thinks we're going to roll over. We're not going to roll over. But, you talk about Pam Bondi not doing the right thing with the Jeffrey Epstein file. Now she's doing the wrong thing. And this is something that got a little press so far. This broke yesterday. I think it'll become a bigger story. The DOJ, according to FBI, according to Fox News, and they had a scoop on this, we wonder why, right? The FBI is investigating James Comey, that's right, former FBI director, and John Brennan, former CIA director. And it's only source reporting. What the reporting is because they investigated Donald Trump over Russia and what Donald Trump was doing in terms of exchanging information or not exchanging information. They were just doing their jobs. And Trump was just asked moments ago in a meeting there about, the question was from Steve Doocy, do you want to see Comey and Brennan behind bars? And Trump said verbatim, I think they're very dishonest people. I think they're crooked as hell. And maybe they have to pay a price for that. So you're having Donald Trump affirm this investigation. He's happy about it. He wants to see them pay a price. And all they did was their job. So As someone who used to be in the DOJ, what's your reaction to this?
My reaction is this is as gross an abuse of presidential power as not as I can imagine, but I think the first executive order in the history of our nation directing that the DOJ criminally investigate someone came in recent months from Donald Trump when he directed them to criminally investigate Miles Taylor and Christopher Krebs. That was a first in our nation's history, and it is yet another low point in our nation's history. So now there he goes again, right? But here's the thing, Dean. He has been promising and promoting criminal prosecutions of his perceived enemies for a very long time now. You know, he's got so many marquee enemies, right? He's got Liz Cheney, he's got Adam Kinzinger, he's got Tish James, he's got Alvin Bragg, he's got Jack Smith. Now he's got Miles Taylor, he's got Chris Krebs, he's got John Brennan, he's got who was the other one that he just
Comey?
Comey. He's got Jim Comey. He's got on and on and on. Remember, Hillary was going to go to jail too. He's never, and I'm not trying to goad him into it, he's never brought criminal charges against a single one, right? And I don't wish a vindictive prosecution on anybody. But if he tries to do it, mark my words, the federal judiciary will cram it down his flippin' throat, figuratively speaking. So I don't want to say bring it on, because nobody should have to defend against a lawless, evidence-free, vindictive prosecution, which is what Donald Trump wants, apparently, you know, to be brought against his enemies. But I think we should, I don't want to go to taco too many times. Trump always chickens out. But let him try to bring a vindictive, evidence-free prosecution against any of these people, and it will make him weaker, and it will make us stronger. I am not embracing Donald Trump's policies that will hurt human beings, like Medicaid cuts and hospital closures and deploying the military to the streets of the United States, setting up what? More fighting brother on brother like we did during the Civil War. That's what Donald Trump is setting up right now. I don't wish it on anybody. However, with every abuse, wake up every morning and read the paper or open your laptop or scroll on your phone. And when you see the new Donald Trump abuse, and it usually gives you a pit in your stomach, think to yourself, that just made him weaker and made us stronger. And if you can view every horror that he perpetrates through that lens, well, then you're going to be energized. You're not going to be despondent and anxious. You're going to be energized. And that's what we need to be.
I love that sentiment. Same with Glenn Kirschner here, who talked about what we read, instead of being despondent or helpless, that it incites you to be more engaged. I wish, look, I'm half Palestinian, half Sicilian. I wish everyone was part Sicilian, because the way I process things is to get angry. You know, like everything is like, what did he do? Let's go get a baseball bat and talk to this guy. You know, that's so I'm in Jersey. So everyone, you have to have an inner Sicilian from Jersey in you that you
I was going to say, I'm
into.
from Jersey, which is, and frankly, Dean, one of my father was a boxer and a football player. He was an All-American college football player. He was a football coach, wrestling coach. You know what his favorite saying is? I don't know if I should say this on air, but what the hell? His favorite saying before he passed his entire life was, a little bit of violence is a good thing. And he meant it, and he lived by that. So yeah, you got to get mad. You got to go hard. Now, you're Palestinian and Sicilian. I'm Hungarian and Irish. Wow. So that means I like, you know, Guinness with my goulash, but I also have a temper now. You know, I also get angry when I see injustice, you know, but it fuels me. It fuels me.
See, the Sicilians will never say something like a little bit of violence is good. They'll say things like, I'm not even kidding. I asked my Sicilian mom once, what did my uncle, one of my uncles, Italian uncles, do for a living? And she actually said to me, who's asking? That's what she said to me. I'm not kidding. That's not I didn't write that joke. That's my Sicilian mom, who that's how they would answer. So like, there's never going to be violence. It's going to be like, God forbid he would go outside and a bus would happen to explode in front of his house. These are things that happen in Jersey. So look, I want to talk about something you covered on, and I watch often your 9 o'clock at night, 9:30 at night Eastern time live streams, and I watch them either later or sometimes live. You did one recently on what's going on with the DOJ before the judge on Monday, and we talked about the UN working group on enforcing involuntary disappearance of people, and that we learned that Trump and the DOJ were lying to the court when they said they had no control over the people we put in El Salvador. In fact, they found, because this UN group went to El Salvador, they said, we're just holding these people for the U.S. So share a little bit about why that was important from a legal point of view.
Oh, yeah.
please.
Let me unpack that. This came by way of a letter that the federal judge wrote, Judge Gallagher, to the DOJ lawyers in the Abrego Garcia case, and not Abrego Garcia. It's the other Venezuelan immigrants who were unlawfully and unconstitutionally sent to that prison in El Salvador, and also to their lawyers. And the letter said, wait a minute, I'm taking judicial notice. For those of us, or those of you who don't know what judicial notice is, it means I am assuming this thing is an irrefutable fact. You don't even need to move it into evidence. I
Right.
got it. A letter from the United Nations in which the government of El Salvador said, wait a minute, these Venezuelans that are in our prison in our country, they ain't our prisoners. We're doing this for the United States. They sent them here. They told us to imprison them. And mind you, Dean, they're being imprisoned. Many of them, most of them have been convicted of no crime.
Right.
Why in the F are they in prison? That's wrongful imprisonment right there, right? But the government of El Salvador says they're not ours. They're the US's. So the judge said, you know what? Based on this letter that was provided to the United Nations by the government of El Salvador, which I'm taking judicial notice of, it looks like you DOJ lawyers have been giving me a bunch of doublespeak and gobbledygook and nonsense when you're like, well, Judge, this, and I'm paraphrasing now, well,
I
Judge,
see.
this involves delicate negotiations and diplomatic matters between the State Department and the government of El Salvador because of it. It's a sovereign nation. We can't just, take their prisoners. And basically the judge is like, oh, bullshit. Look at what El Salvador is saying. They're saying that these are your people, your prisoners. You can have them any dang time you want. I'm obviously taking liberties and I'm translating the judge's
I
letter
understand.
from
Right.
legalese to English. But the judge said, and therefore, you're going to get your butts into my courtroom and you're going to explain yourself. And she ordered Trump administration officials to come in on Thursday and stop with the double speak and the lies. So, yeah, this is why I say this is not sustainable, Dean. This is DOJ imploding every day.
Are some of these lawyers, and we're both lawyers, but you practiced for a long time, I didn't, expose themselves to being suspended or even disbarred for some of these
Yes.
things that they're saying to this judge on the record?
When judges say things like you're not being straight with the court, you're saying things that don't make any sense, you're saying things with no evidentiary support. These are the kind of statements by judges that get attorneys referred to their state bar, wherever they're licensed. When you're a federal prosecutor, you have to become a member of a state bar. You have to pass a state bar exam. I was barred in New Jersey. And then you can practice federally in all jurisdictions. You just have to be a member of one state bar as a lawyer. And so, for example, Emile Beauvais has his bar license, his license to practice law in New York, right? So these kind of statements being made by federal judges will get you referred to your state bar counsel for an ethics investigation, possible sanctions up to and including disbarment.
I think that's such an important thing. And just so everyone gets it, Trump can't pardon you from being disbarred. That's
No.
not how it works. That's only for federal crimes, not for state actions. And if you violate the rules of the State Bar Association, and Rudy Giuliani was disbarred. And
Kenneth Chesbro was just disbarred last
right.
week.
Yeah, in New York.
Yeah.
For lying. And you can't do it. So the last thing I want to touch on, again, this relates to Abrego Garcia, and you've really covered it a great deal of the time on your show, which is great because sometimes it gets lost in the media coverage. This is less legal per se, but maybe it gets to it. Abrego Garcia comes out of this detainment center in El Salvador, known horrific place, right? He comes out, and in the court pleadings now in America, I'm going to read right from it. He said that they were forced to kneel, including Abrego Garcia, the inmates from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m., and that with guards striking anyone who fell from exhaustion, they were denied bathroom breaks. He soiled himself. He was subjected to psychological torture, threats of violence, saying, "We're going to put you with the gangs, and they're going to kill you and eat you up." The guy was not charged with any crimes before he was sent there. Now that the government, Trump administration, knows that if they're sending people to El Salvador, they're going to be tortured, even though we knew that before, but now that it's in a court document, does that expose them potentially to any kind of liability from a criminal point of view?
How can it not? I mean, we are torturing those Venezuelan immigrants who are in that El Salvador terrorist prison. We are torturing them by proxy, right?
Yeah.
Because we sent them there. We're paying to keep them there. I don't know how we can pay to keep people in prison who have been convicted of no crime. Once you deport somebody, if they are lawfully deported, they don't get locked up in the country that we deported them to just because we say so and we're willing to pay people to confine them. That's illegal imprisonment, false imprisonment. That's actually an action for which, you can bring a tort claim. You can bring a civil lawsuit against somebody who is falsely imprisoning you. And they're not only being falsely imprisoned, they're being tortured on top of it. That's on us, Dean. Yes, it's on El Salvador because they're doing it, but we are the ones who enabled them to do it. And we're continuing to enable that kind of treatment of our fellow human beings.
Yeah, and just can you touch on, before we wrap up, that even American prison, if they were treating inmates like this, like beating them, saying you have to kneel from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m., you don't get to lay down. If you kill over, we're going to beat you, we're going to kick you, we're going to punch you like they did. They're going to subject them to psychological torture, not so you can't go to the bathroom, so they soil themselves. Would not the guards here, if this happened on U.S. land, be subjected to criminal actions for this?
Yeah, these could be civil rights violations, but Dean, they could also be criminal assaults. Just because you're an inmate doesn't mean that a corrections official, a prison guard, can punch you in the face or kick you in the head or torture you in any number of ways. Those are criminal offenses. There's no immunity for anybody inside a detention facility who happens to be wearing a uniform. They get to do whatever they want to the prisoners, right? And there are suits, both civil suits and criminal charges. I know because as a prosecutor in DC, we had the DC jail and the
Yeah.
CTF, the confinement treatment facility. And these are big old jails where we house people. And Dean, there were a lot of crimes that were committed, and not just by the inmates in those facilities in DC. And we, as the prosecutors, had to investigate, and where the circumstances and the evidence supported it, we had to prosecute people for what went on in the jails. So there's no, immunity. Guards don't get to do what they want, and we are the ones who continue to allow this and even facilitate it. So yeah, there are all kinds of potential suits and even criminal charges that could be brought if crimes are committed inside detention facilities, particularly in the U.S. But what federal prosecutors are going to bring them? Not Pam
Well,
Bondi's Department of Justice.
no, but I talked about this on the show about a month ago, and I wrote a Substack about it, that, the International Criminal Court, we don't have jurisdiction over crimes committed in the United States of America. I think most people know that. But nations that are signatories, if
Not
you commit a
us.
crime against humanity there, and guess what? El Salvador is a signatory to the National Criminal Court. So if the U.S., through our actions, if Donald Trump and Pam Bondi commit crimes there, or Tom Homan, crimes against humanity, then they could be charged by the ICC for that. Of course, Trump will be like, we don't have jurisdiction. No, they actually do. Now, will it get to that level? We don't know. But I want a Nuremberg-type trial. And I want you, Glenn, to be the prosecutor. And we can prosecute Homan, Bondi, Patel, of course, Trump, all of them, line them up. It's like in The Godfather, it was like, we got them all today. Natalia, Bazzini, again, being Sicilian, these are the names I got to bring up. But this is my hope, that there really is to send a message that you're not above the law just because you're in the United States of America. If you commit a crime against humanity on foreign soil that is a signator to the ICC, you can be charged for crimes.
Yeah, and I love the academic exercise of going through the possibilities of how we might be able to hold these folk accountable. I'm not optimistic that any of it will happen. However, there's one way we can move in that direction, and it's the midterm elections, and then it's the next presidential election. And then, Dean, I would come back to government in a heartbeat and try to hold folk accountable for what they have done to we the people, what they have done to our once great nation, which is not only not great at this point, but it's the laughing stock of the world. People don't even want to travel. Tourism is down to the United States because people want no part of what's going on in Donald Trump's America. And I don't blame them. So, I love the academic exercise of
That's what we do.
of projecting, how we might be able to hold folk accountable. But first and foremost, it's up to us to save us. It's always up to us. No prosecutor, no politician, no judge will save us. We will save us. And we'll do that in both the midterms and the next presidential election. But we can't wait until the midterms. We have to be out there every dang day. The next big rally is July 17th. I'm speaking at 2 rallies, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, both out here in Northern Virginia. So, we got to get our protest on. We got to get our march on. We got to, get our rally on, and we've got to do it all day, every day. My wife just was over a friend's house, and they were signing voters' postcards, writing out voters' postcards until their hands were cramping up. And it's like every day, all day, we got to do it.
Yeah, and we have elections for governor in Virginia and New Jersey this November. They are really important. They give us momentum going to 2026. Before we wrap up, for anyone thinking, well, they're not going to let us have election in 2026, I will remind you, even Putin has election. They want the veneer of legitimacy. It's will they rig it or not? And that's where we come in to start working now with AGs to make sure they can't do that. And having people like Mark Elias and Glenn Kirschner and others, where we're going to be on our guard for that. We will have an election in 2026. Trump will be screaming and crying about it. They will want it. We are going to win that one. Glenn, if people want to follow your work, obviously Substack is one place. On YouTube, where else can they follow you?
Yeah, so Substack it's such a new platform to me. I've been on it a few months. I'm 100% independent because I decided to leave MSNBC, leave corporate media behind, and I try to jump on a live Substack every night, sometime between like 8 and 9:30, depending on my schedule. And I love it because it's just straight to the folks who subscribe, and I don't put anything behind a paywall. So if you want to go subscribe to my Substack, just hit subscribe for free. You'll get everything I do, written content, videos. If you want to support me, you're welcome to, but you don't have to. Similarly, over on YouTube, I put a legal analysis video up every day. I'm just editing the one I did today. That's also always free. Hit subscribe on YouTube. That helps me. But and then you can, if you really want to go behind the scenes here at Justice Matters, you can go over to patreon.com, sign up to become a patron, and you'll get Justice Matters and Team Justice stickers and a handwritten note and all sorts of behind the scenes stuff. So, there are a lot of ways to kind of find me on the various platforms. And if you want to support my work, I would be grateful.
And for me, I hope you'll sign up because I'm needy. That's all it's about. I need friends. I'm very self-aware of my neediness. So Substack is always free. Everything's free. I'm not trying to make a profit. I'm trying to make a difference. That's what I tell people, and I say that sincerely. Glenn, thanks so much. Thanks for everyone for tuning in. We really saw all the comments there. A lot of great stuff. I really appreciate it. Glenn, I look forward to chatting with you in the future. Have a great day, everyone. Take care,
I'll see you soon, Dean. All right.
Take care. Bye-bye.